The Unfiltered by Jade.
Jade.
Welcome to The Unfiltered by Jade, where we educate, empower, and entertain. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, download, donate, and make everybody know about this.
Beats by RB Records.
Shopping assistance, your style, your budget. Our services include online and local shopping for individuals and businesses, personal shopping, purchasing of company and office supplies, importing and exporting small packages across Jamaica and worldwide, and helping you find unique gifts and items for all events and occasions. Contact us at 876-919-5195 or shoppingassistance2015@gmail.com. Shopping Assistance, your style, your budget.
Welcome back to The Unfiltered by Jade. Today we have with us here Briaina Latrice, and we are here to speak about recovering from infidelity. And Briaina is a certified affair recovery coach, and I said she is certified. So she's the right person to speak about the topic that we're going to have a conversation about today. So hi, Briaina.
Hi, hello everybody. Hey Jade.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Super excited. Amped up.
I am amped up. As we were talking about before. Yes, we have been
podcast.
Yes, that's what we have been watching. And it so happens that we were both watching it before the show.
I know, that's so funny. Yeah.
So now we're both amped up to talk about this topic, which is so good.
Yes.
I want you first. We always talk about infidelity. What is infidelity? And I mean, even watching Their Future Wifey, I'm getting like a whole new understanding of what infidelity is in a broader light. But I want you to let our listeners know first, what exactly is infidelity?
Yeah, so infidelity really is like the act of being unfaithful to a spouse or like a long-term partner that you're in a relationship with. And typically it means engaging in sexual or romantic relations with a person other than your significant other. So when we talk about infidelity, that's kind of the clear-cut answer to that. Yeah.
I mean, because some people say infidelity can be emotional cheating.
Right. Yeah. And I was actually going to say that. So, we can also talk about things like emotional infidelity and things like that. So there's different types of infidelity, but it's basically, where it doesn't, very intimate and vulnerable spaces that don't include the person with whom you're in a relationship with.
Sounds good. Is there, so cheating is the same as infidelity? Because some people don't consider it the same thing.
No, I would say they're all the same. Like cheating is just a synonym for infidelity. So when we talk about cheating, straying, adultery, unfaithful, two-timing, having an affair, like essentially, the foundation for all of those are kind of the same.
Okay. And why I asked it, because I've heard people say if they're not if they're not married, they don't consider it really infidelity. They just call it cheating. But I'm like, it's the same thing though. Unless you consider one more serious than the other.
And it's so funny that you asked that question, because when I first started life after infidelity, I went back and forth with that. Just about, okay, well, infidelity, is if you're married. But I'll be honest with you. What I'm finding now is that when you're cheated on, it doesn't matter if you're married, if you're in the relationship for 5 years, if you're in the relationship for 6 months, people are experiencing the same types of hurts.
Yes.
And so for me, what I did initially when I first started, I did do it like that. Like I was like, infidelity, no, I'm just working with married women. But as I started to do the work and put my work out there, I'm seeing that it's affecting everyone. And the word, I thought infidelity would stray away like people who weren't in relationship, like
Right.
married, let me say that.
Right.
But it's attracting everyone. So I now no longer look at it as a difference.
Okay. Okay. That's
Yeah.
a good context to it.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are, for people who can't understand why people do, what are some of the leading causes of infidelity?
Ooh, Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
Mm-hmm.
it can be a lot, right? And before we talk about like, and of course we know the surface level things, right? Like just where people just don't have any self control, they want what they want, and then they go and get it,
Right.
right? But coming from a male perspective, I'll start there. A lot of men have said that they didn't feel respected
Mm.
in their relationships, and so that caused them to stray off. Also, they didn't feel worthy. I was actually talking to a gentleman who's going to be a guest on my podcast, and he was saying that he was cleaning out his attic one day and he stumbled across his wife's like box of high school stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and in it had a list of like what she wanted her husband to be. And he said that he looked over that list and everything on that list had nothing to do with him.
Wow.
So he was like, he started to feel like he didn't belong in this marriage because he felt like she maybe settled or whatever. And so he was looking for validation. So that went out and that made him stray. Then when we talk about other things like difficulty with emotional regulation, people who have experienced childhood traumas that may struggle with regulating their emotions. And so they turn to infidelity as a way to cope with, any type of stress, anxiety, or depression. Then we talk about attachment issues, people who struggle with intimacy and may use cheating as a way to avoid emotional closeness.
Mm.
We talk about self-esteem issues, right? And
Yes.
that's kind of self-explanatory. Lack of fulfillment within the relationship. Something else that's very important is emotional disconnect.
Yes.
And maybe we can get into that, just about how people get into relationships, but then you grow apart in that relationship.
Yes. Yes.
Sexual dissatisfaction, right? Like that's a mismatch. People are looking for that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then, like I said, just like that, just want what you want. So that novelty and excitement. Some people just don't like the monotony or routine of a long-term relationship, so they choose to stray. There's so many unresolved issues or conflicts, that you haven't resolved, and so now you grow bitter towards that. I could keep going on and on and on, but
Yeah.
those
I get it, though, and I've heard some. I heard some of the same responses in terms of why.
yeah.
And in especially the emotional detachment, or the growing apart. I can see that, but the truth is, can I look at somebody and say, you know what, God forbid, but I did this because I wasn't emotionally attached to you anymore, and somebody say, you know what, okay, I understand. Can that ever be justified? Can those reasons ever be justified?
No. Short answer is no, right?
Okay.
Like cheating is never justified, because I feel like you have several opportunities, right? And even like what we were talking about coming off of the Dear Future Wifey podcast,
Mm-hmm.
just all of the times that he cheated on this woman, he could have just said, hey, I think I want to not be in a marriage or a relationship, right? But again, I do believe that reasons can be understood, right? So like for the examples that I just mentioned earlier about reasons why people cheat, like I totally understand that in context why a person would go astray, because I'm learning that a lot of us do not know how to properly communicate.
True.
And so,
True.
and so instead of properly communicating with people about how we're feeling, we decide to just hold on to that angst, and then we just go and react. And now we're reacting out of our hurt and our pain. And so, yeah, long term, no. Short answer, there's no. It can never be justified, but there are definitely reasons that I understand once I start working with people.
Okay. Most of us won't have that experience of working with people to understand certain things. So
Yeah.
in general, we just won't understand. We're not understanding. anything that you say, because if you didn't feel like you wanted to be in this relationship, you could have gone.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's like, yeah, a lot of people aren't doing the work that I'm doing, but I think that, hopefully what we're learning from this, right, is that people learn how to properly communicate, you know,
Yeah.
what it is that they desire and what it is that they even have the capacity to give in a relationship. And it made me think about someone asked me a question because initially they were in a relationship and they were like, okay, it was just monogamy, like we're just going to be each other. But then her partner came back to her and said, hey, I want to have an open relationship.
Mm.
And so she was just like upset with him and angry with him. And, she was mad at him because, now he wants to stray and be with other women. And, they asked me, they were like, well, is he not wrong for that? And I was like, well, no. People change,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
I think that when a person has the maturity and the capacity to come to you and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling and this is how I want to move forward, instead of just cheating on you, like you have to respect the
Yep.
conversation and the
Yep.
desires that
Yep.
person is having.
I
And I
agree.
think that leads back to the reasons can be understood is because a lot of people are fearful that if they do go to their partners with these conversations, how that person will be villainized when really they're just trying to be vulnerable and share what it is that they desire.
So I'm gonna throw it out there to say, people cheat
Mm-hmm.
because the other person really can't take the truth.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's your take on it, or
I'm because I'm rationalizing it in my head. If it is that I go to no, let's let's look at it. If I go to my partner and I say, hey, whether it's the truth about, I want to see somebody else, or it's the truth about, hey, I'm not emotionally, you're not feeding me. I'm not getting what I'm supposed to get emotionally from you, and the other person just doesn't want to change at all. And
Mhm.
you talk to the person doesn't want to change, you end up cheating
Yeah,
or you end up leaving. And it's because the other person doesn't want to either take accountability or say, hey, all right, how can I be better for you?
yeah.
um or the person doesn't want to hear, and I say, oh no, you're the problem. So in other words, you don't want to hear what I have to say, so it's better I cheat on you.
Mm. So I would say people cheat for one of two reasons: because they lack emotional intelligence,
Okay.
meaning that they don't have the ability to actually, like this gentleman who went to the woman and told him, hey, I want to be in an open relationship, I don't want to be monogamous anymore. Like, I respect that, right? Like, that's you have a high level of emotional IQ because you can come and you can say that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that most people, they already know they don't want to be in a serious relationship. Even when they get into like a committed relationship, they already know from the beginning that they don't want to be monogamous. And I think that those people lack the emotional intelligence to actually express how they feel.
Mm.
The other part to that is, well, I'm gonna say it's three parts. The other part to that is traumas. People don't want to sit down and look at their traumas because there is a lot of
Ah.
traumas attached to a person, being you have to do a lot of conniving and deception to cheat. Like, it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of things that you are choosing to overlook in your personal life, as to why you're having these multiple relationships with multiple women. And then I think the third part to that is like what you said too. People are afraid of how their partner will respond.
Yeah.
But I would circle that back around to emotional maturity or intelligence to say that you speaking your truth is you speaking your truth. It doesn't have anything to do with how the person responds, because I'd rather for you to speak your truth and that person be upset and respond upset at your truth than you go and cheat and now you're hurting them and putting them through all of this mental psychological issues that infidelity causes.
I mean, I get it, and I agree with everything that you're saying. And I also on the flip side understand when persons don't want to say anything, because if they say it, the other person is going to react to them, and some of them
Hmm.
they fear that rejection, because some people are open. So a lot of persons who have encountered and have respected, especially males, if they want to do something, they're going to say, hey, this is where I'm at. Whether people find it disrespectful or not, at least they did say it,
Right. Yeah.
right? And I am able to say, darn, you mean that really hurts, but then darn, that's good that you can actually speak your truth. So it's it's
For
two
sure.
sided to it, but then they don't want to do it because their partners, how their partners will react, or they have tried to find their partners reacted out a particular way and they don't want that, because there are many persons who as I said, I've spoken to, and is either they're probably thinking about cheating on their partners, or
Hmm.
maybe have cheated on their partners before,
Hmm.
and they will come and say, "Hey, I'm gonna cheat on her." And I'm saying, why would you do that? Did you have a conversation with her to tell her what's happening? I have multiple conversations with her, and she's not hearing it. And when I did the first time, her reaction was this, or his reaction was this. When I told him,
Hmm.
I'm not being pleased this way, so
Yeah.
I'm no longer going to do that, because I cannot deal with me going to tell you my truth, and then
Yeah.
4 months on the line, I'm still hearing it in every argument that we're having
Yo.
because I spoke my truth to you. So I
Yeah.
prefer to not speak my truth and just be conniving and do something behind your back so you don't really find out. Or if you do, that's it. But I did tell you. I did
Hmm.
tell you, I did try to talk to you about it. You were not willing to hear, and then you used it in other arguments that we've had. So give me something.
Whew. You know, one thing, when we talk about rebuilding trust in relationships, um, there's five components to that, right? There's understanding,
Mm-hmm.
meaning that your partner really needs to, is your partner really trying to understand, like, whatever truth that you're revealing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are they really trying to get an understanding of why you're saying it, why you're feeling the way you're feeling, and how you're even feeling, and the strength that you had to use to even come clean about whatever situation it is, right?
Right.
Then the next part is motive. What is this person's motive behind wanting to rebuild the trust, or behind wanting you to, like, or maybe say this when we talk about context of an argument, what is the person's motive behind bringing up a truth that you chose
Ah,
to expose to them, right?
that's something.
Is the what's the motive? Is the motive to, try to belittle you or make you feel bad, or even when we talk about trust, a lot of women come to me and they're like, their partner tells them, I'm not cheating anymore, so get over it. What's the motive behind them wanting to keep you silent, right?
Hmm.
And we can get into that a little bit. But
Hmm.
then also the ability. Does this person, because you have, maybe this person truly understands you, right? Like, they understand everywhere that you're coming from, every angle, and they have a really good motive. Like, their intention is really pure in trying to better this relationship. But maybe they just don't have the ability or capacity to be the person that you want them to be in a
Hmm.
relationship, you know?
Okay.
The second part is character, because even when you're hurting and you're angry, if a person has good character, they're not going to do things like hit below the belt in arguments. One thing I always admired about when I was married is that even when we would have arguments, my ex-husband never called me out of my name. And people look at me shocked. They're like, oh, he never called you in. No, like, he and I never would hit below the belt, because we did have some level of character to us, right? And
Right.
then the last part to rebuilding trust is track record. What is the person's track record? So maybe you tell that person, hey, I really don't like when you bring up a truth that I shared with you, but then you bring it up in an argument, to try to make me feel bad, or to try to, place this guilt back onto me. I really don't like that. And then, within that conversation, they're like, well, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. Okay, but then y'all argue again and they do it again. And so I would say that, a lot of us are staying in relationships because of love, but you need more than love to stay in a relationship.
Listen to me.
And so when we're talking about
Whoosh.
building trust or rebuilding trust in relationships, I think you need to look at these qualifiers. Does this person have these five qualifiers, which are understanding, motive, ability, character, and track record?
Ooh. Oh boy. Um. Listen, I've been saying this. I've said to people, listen, our relationship needs more than love, and I've been, no, that's not true. We need only love. Love, cause we need more than love in a relationship, because if there's love and you keep hitting below the belt, I'm leaving.
Exactly.
It's like we gotta figure this out because I'm not gonna stay and be emotional and abused because I love you. That's not gonna be that's not working.
It's not going to be. And a lot, everyone that I know who cheated on their partner love their partner.
Listen, of course they did. Of course they did.
So it has to be more than love. You know what I'm saying? It has to be more than love to keep you to stay in a relationship.
Most definitely. The what I'm gonna ask is because I've had this conversation too. Do you believe that if persons probably have cheated emotionally or so, and they have cheated on their partner, and they go to their partner and say, "Hey, I've cheated on you," do you think it's wrong? Because I've been told that if it is that the motive for telling the person what you have done is either because you want to hurt the person or you want to leave. So is it that we should not share that information to be vulnerable and to be open in our relationships, especially if it is that we don't want to leave, or what? Because there are two sides to that story.
Here's the thing about infidelity, like we have to stop putting generalities on infidelity because everybody is different, right?
Right.
And I think that if a person is, you know, wanting to share this just to come clean, right? Like some people have a conscience.
Right.
And again, we go back to this character thing. Some people have character. And so they feel bad and they feel guilty about it. And so, you never know what's going on in that person's heart. And so they're wanting to have a clean slate. And maybe this is using this by them coming clean. It's using it as accountability,
Yes.
because now if their partner is aware that, okay, I did do this, now I want you to kind of help me hold myself accountable, not to stray. Because here's the thing, when you're in a relationship, if you cheated in the relationship and now you want to learn how to heal and move forward out of this, there's some parts of you that are going to have to involve your partner. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
period. And I think that if you continue to move in secrecy within your relationship, even though you're no longer cheating and you're not going to cheat anymore, well, then what is the foundation of your relationship continuing to be built upon?
Wow.
Because now you're having to move in silence as to why you're trying to navigate different things. And, maybe you're going to therapy, so there's so many things now that, in the past, you were probably being secretive because you were sneaking off seeing this partner, but now you're sneaking off for healing. That's still a form, when we go back, right, and we're defining it, that's still a form of infidelity because you're not being truthful and open and vulnerable in a relationship. And that is, to me, the catalyst for forms of infidelity, when you lack the ability to feel safe enough to be vulnerable in relationships.
I like that. I like how that's put. Speaking about going to get therapy for it, how long does infidelity trauma actually last?
It lasts as long as it lasts as long as you choose not to acknowledge how it's affecting you.
Okay.
And I say that to say this. I was working with a woman, and she shared with me that her husband cheated on her 17 years ago. And she said, it still hurts as if I found out yesterday.
Yeah.
Because she hasn't went through the healing process. And I know women who left when, and let me preface this by saying I work with women, I coach women. I don't want people to think like women don't cheat. Women cheat as well. So when I'm talking, I'm more so talking because I'm so used to the context of my women.
Right.
But just know that this does not negate the fact that women don't cheat. So I'm not male bashing.
Right.
But I know women who just go from relationship to relationship, and they have this continuous build up baggage. Like I had one woman that I was coaching, and she says every relationship she's been in has ended in infidelity and her partner's cheating on her. Wow. So I would say the trauma from infidelity lasts as long as you don't take the time to start the healing process. And that first starts with that acknowledgement piece of it.
Yeah. We have to acknowledge it first before we can get healed from it.
Yeah. And and people might say, well, I do acknowledge it, because they might go to social media and out the person that did them wrong, and they might talk about, how pissed they are and how angry they are. But that really isn't acknowledging it. Like
Yeah.
when I say acknowledgement, I mean like doing the deep, intense work of allowing yourself to feel in your body how this has impacted you, right? And not even so much the emotion, but even if you do have the emotion, like I was on a coaching call with a lady last week, and I was like, you always talk about grief. You're going through grief of infidelity. And I said, let's take some time to define what grief is for you. And
Mm-hmm.
so she expanded on that grief, right? And then she talked about within that grief, she felt abandoned, right? Which is a common thing. She felt rejected. She felt anger. And then with each one of those words, I had her to dissect what that looks like, what that feels like within her body. And it's giving yourself the space to acknowledge that yes, this person hurt you intensely, and coming from it from a healing space instead of coming from it in like this anger, I'm seeking revenge type space.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense, because people have reached out to me and I've turned down coaching with women because they've been on this spiteful type, oh, talking, calling him out of his name and all that stuff. And I tell them, hey, my program is not for you. There's
No.
still some beginning stages of healing that you need to work on within yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it continues to make people bitter if they continue to be
Yep.
spiteful and revengeful.
Yep.
Can't
Yeah.
continue life like that. So for these kind of relationships with infidelity that has happened, can they recover?
Yes, they can definitely recover. But this takes work on both parties, right?
Okay.
This takes work from both parties. Um, Again, when we talk about the 5 elements of trust, so just making sure that the person is really trying to get an understanding.
Mm-hmm.
What is their motive for rebuilding that trust? Again, if that person even has the ability, because what you'll start to learn is that as you start to really heal and rebuild yourself through trust, you're going to have so much growth, and either you and your partner are going to grow together, or y'all are going to
Mm-hmm.
grow apart, and you have to be okay with whatever decision comes out of that. And
Right.
so when we talk about the 5 components of rebuilding trust, like I'm big on those, so us looking at those. And then when we talk about questions, right, because we already know when you find out you done got cheated on, you want to ask the person, well, what did she look like? Where did
Mm-hmm.
you do? And
Mm-hmm.
those type of questions are continuing to put you in a negative space that is digging you deeper in a hole, preventing you from actually healing. But when you are wanting to recover from infidelity with your partner, you should ask some really good thought-provoking questions that are going to help the both of you all grow. So asking questions like, what needs or desires did the affair fulfill that you felt were missing in our relationship?
Mm.
In what ways did you feel disconnected or unsatisfied in our relationship prior to the affair? Um, did the affair serve as an escape or a distraction from other challenges or stresses in your life? And a really important question: are you glad the affair is over?
These are
Because
some these are some real mature questions that you have to ask.
well, but
Listen, because you have to be in a real good headspace. I don't
mhm,
even know if it's a good headspace, but you have to be real mature to ask these questions without throwing some stones and beating. Because if the question comes that you were not providing, maybe this the person was providing, it can provoke people. It can
yeah,
provoke people. So you have to be in a more mature state to say, all right, let me it hurt me, but let me kind of let me not listen to this conversation with my feelings.
yeah, that's
uh,
good. Hmm. Hmm.
because if I listen to my feelings, he might be dead. So let me listen. Let me listen and hear what he has to say and respond without feelings, without my feelings in there.
Mm-hmm.
And that would probably be a better conversation than if we have our feelings in there and everything the person said out we're dissecting and are ready to jump on them, because that's also probably, the person might say, and this is why I cheated on you. I can't talk to you.
Yeah. Yeah, but it goes back to, of course, asking these questions are it's later in the process. But one of the
Okay.
things that I always talk about when we're recovering from infidelity, the very first week that I have everyone to do that works with me, I call it a pity party.
Hmm.
And I'm like, you can have this pity party as long as you want or as short as you want. Like, it could be an hour, it can be a month, it can be 6 months. But within that pity party, that's where you're feeling all of those feels. Because when you do get to this space, like you said, you do have to be in a different headspace to actually have the question, ask those questions and receive them
Yes.
in a mature level. But you can't get to that. And here's the thing, and I think this is where people kind of try to navigate too fast off of that, is that they try to get to those questions. And even if it is the questions about, well, who is she? What she look like? What position did y'all do? At that point, you're not even in the headspace to receive those
Exactly.
answers to those questions, because you have so many emotions tied up in you that you haven't dealt with. So, that's why the initial shock of all of it, you need to allow yourself to feel the initial shock. You need to allow yourself to be okay in this space of not knowing what you want to do, if you want to leave or if you want to forgive the person and rebuild the trust. Like, there's so much that you have to process, and you need to allow yourself to be in that processing space for however
Mm.
long you need to be.
Yeah. And people need to allow you to process it.
People need to allow you to process it. And when you are in that processing space, this is where you allow yourself to come from a space of inquiry. But it's more so of like this self-reflection of, why am I so pissed off? Am I pissed off because this is not the first time that they've done this? Or am I pissed off because I feel rejected? Am I pissed off because I've been knowing for months and I didn't say anything? So it's allowing yourself to like really figure out, shoot, ask yourself, what role did you play in it? What part of
That's
you
it.
allowed,
Yep.
accepted, or
Hmm.
attracted this type of person?
Yep.
um so you have to, and I think that that's the thing. Like, I made a post the other day where I said, stop forgiving prematurely. It's great, we're in this age of emotional maturity, and we're hearing people talking about healing and becoming the better version of yourself. But sometimes within that journey, you need to be angry, and that
Yeah.
is okay. So
Hmm.
stop trying to forgive prematurely.
Yep. Yep. I agree with you. I agree with you. And as you said, you hit the nail on the head where you said, sometimes ask yourself, what role did I play in it? Many people say, oh, I didn't cause him to do it. He went and cheated on himself. Sometimes we play roles in it, because sometimes we sit and watch them doing things and we don't say anything. Even like when we were watching Dear Future Wife, and she sat in her closet crying, and he asked what was wrong, and she told him, it's my dad, it's not your dad.
Mm-hmm.
And we lie to ourselves and we condone these things, and then now when it blows up in front of our face, we're angry, we're upset. Like, and looking at her, I'm like, girl, you calling me out because I remember doing these things too. And we have to reach a place where you have to say, okay, what did I do
Yep.
also to condone this behavior? So
Yep.
I cannot be truly, truly angry. Oh my god, I can't do that, because I sat in there and allowed some of these things to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think people will look at that and be like, well, you're justifying that person's behavior. No, you're not. But we're both in the relationship together.
Yep.
And so, in order to, because like you said, the elements for rebuilding trust in a relationship after infidelity comes with maturity.
Yes.
Now, you can put a band-aid over it, right? And then in 6 months, y'all can be in another toxic situation, and that's possible, right? Like, there's a lot of
Hmm.
toxic relationships out there
Oh
that
yeah.
aren't actually delving into trying to cultivate this loving, flourishing, healthy relationship. And so that's possible. But if you really want to recover from infidelity and leave it without having any bitterness towards trust, love, or relationships in general, you have to do those hard growth things for yourself, like the inner work within yourself, before you can even start to apply those things with another human being.
I agree. I agree with that. What are some of the tools that we can use to help us to recover from infidelity?
So allowing yourself to have a pity party. And I even tell people, like, tell your closest friends so they can hold you accountable, and just let them know, hey, I'm going to have a pity party. I'm going to be feeling all the feels that I feel in this, finding out this news of this infidelity. And again, really allowing yourself to feel how your body feels, also to feel how you feel emotionally, but also unpacking that, because so many of us can say, I'm angry, I feel shame, I feel sadness, but we need to dissect all of those emotions too, right? Because like even when we're watching the Dear Future Wifey podcast, she had all those emotions, but like what she said, when she started to go through therapy, she was able to process
Yes.
what all this, because once you start to process, okay, why do I feel shame? Well, I feel shame, and then you'll learn that shame is due to rejection. You don't want to
Yes.
be rejected, so that's why you turned your head when you knew that they were doing you dirty,
Yeah.
but you
Mhm.
stayed because you didn't want to do it. So the acknowledgement of that, and when you're doing that, journaling is a really big thing. Journaling is very important, actually, so that you can kind of see, because sometimes when we're going through these cycles, like we'll have ebb and flows, let me say that, within our healing journey. And so you might be good one day, and then the next day you feel like, I fell back. What happened?
Mhm.
What happened?
Mhm.
And so being able to journal and things like that, um having moments of silence,
Mm.
because here's the thing, you want to be able to sit with yourself, and that's one of the hardest things to do, is sit with yourself, because that is to where a lot of those hard truths come up,
Mhm.
like for women, if you have those daddy issues, and for men, if you have those mother issues, because what you'll find out too is that we all have childhood wounds that
Yes.
when they come unhealed, our inner child just end up becoming the adult versions of
Mhm.
us,
Over self. Mhm.
that that we haven't taken the time to heal. And so I would say, like, just starting there with those type of things, having yourself the pity party, allowing yourself to feel those emotions again, asking yourself, what role did you play? Journaling. And honestly, I hope that by people watching the Nia Jackson's interview, they'll see the mental and psychological turmoil that it has on people.
Yes.
And you definitely need to talk to someone,
Yeah.
because infidelity, it erupts so much within people that I don't think they realize, like, you don't sleep, your diet is off, because she even talked about losing weight, how skinny she
Yeah.
got, she wasn't eating. And those are mental, those are signs that you have a mental health condition.
Yeah.
And I think that so many in different communities, they just look at it because it happens so frequently, and we appear on the surface to just get over it because maybe we go to another relationship, right? But that has a lot of emotional and mental turmoil on us. And so I encourage people to definitely get into counseling,
Counseling.
coaching,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
something.
Mhm. Mhm. Get the help that we need. Sometimes we can't do it by ourselves.
No, we can't at all. And even more, I would say too, building a support system is important, right? Establishing clear boundaries, because a lot of that too is that we've just allowed our boundaries to be so broken
Yeah.
that we don't even know what boundaries look like. I know
Right.
for me, when I came out of my divorce, I didn't even know what boundaries was.
Right.
um,
Right. Right.
and then even in your toolbox, having patience and empathy on yourself, because like I shared, um, you're going to go through ebbs and flows within your healing journey, and that is a-okay. But
Mhm.
allowing yourself to just be patient with yourself and give yourself that compassion that you need.
Yeah. I love that. Um, and I wish for persons listening that you forgive yourself, reach a place where you can forgive yourself also for sitting in it and taking things that didn't sit right with you and only allowed you to become hard and resentful.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
One of the things I always say too is looking at yourself in your shame,
yeah,
but not seeing your shame as ugly. A lot of my women, like when they start to tear up and they cover their face, I make them take their hands down, and while their tears are strolling down, they're looking at themselves, because I want you to embrace, like you said, I want you to forgive yourself, and there's nothing to be ashamed about in this moment of you choosing to stay too long, you choosing to take them back time after time, knowing, like, allowing yourself, looking at yourself and saying, you know what, this is just a piece of my story, and I'm not going to be ashamed by it.
yeah, yeah. And with that story, it can help others. Always look at
Mm-hmm.
your story. It's not a failure. It's when it can help others. Because sometimes we also stay in these situations because we think that we probably won't get something else.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? So sometimes we stay in there because of that, or we're ashamed to come out and how it's gonna look, etc., etc., etc. But I mean, sometimes we have to start thinking about ourselves. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that in every situation we need to get up and leave. If it is that we believe we can overcome it, go ahead, do the work and overcome it. But for those who don't think so, and you're only staying in it because you don't think there's better out there, we need to kind of do ourselves some justice.
I agree. I'm sorry, I'm thinking about so much that you said because I'm processing that, but it's like so true. Like, in one of the things that I always tell people, because most people are confused, like they don't know if they want to stay or they want to go. But there's a process to that too, of like learning how to decide if this is something that you can, live with and move forward in, or if it's something that you just can't do. But you need to know how to process that, ask those right questions so that you can make the best decision for yourself.
Yes. Yeah. So this is very educational, and I'm hoping that when people listen to this podcast, they'll get something from it, and they'll take into consideration themselves along with the other person. And as you know, as Brianna said in the beginning, have some character. So even if it is that you're going through it, don't hit below the belt with anybody.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
learning how to communicate properly is essential, and it's very vital for any relationship. And learning to hear, not with emotions, but hear and be precise and listen to what is being said, and then try to make better. Because sometimes infidelity can, it can be avoided if we just listen.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
very true.
Yeah, listen. It can be avoided if we just listen, and just try and listen without some emotion sometimes. Or I'm not gonna say without emotions, but sometimes without listening to response. That's
Exactly.
all.
And that's funny because that's exactly where I was going with that. It was like, and not listening to respond, but really listen to understand,
Yes.
and to get an understanding, and then you can respond based off of that understanding.
Right. Brandon, where is it that we can find you?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram and TikTok, Life After Infidelity.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm on Facebook at Briaina Latrice. And you can also find me, or you can go to my website at lifeafterinfidelity.net. And I'll actually be launching my podcast, Life After Infidelity, July the 28th. So it's just
Yay!
going to be stories of both from men and women who have experienced cheating or who have been cheated on, just kind of sharing their stories of overcoming. Because it's like what you mentioned earlier, Jade, about there's healing in sharing
Sharing.
stories.
Yes, there is.
And I think one thing that if I had to leave this podcast, that I would want all people to know, that have been cheated on, is that you are not alone.
You are not
You
alone.
are not alone, and don't be
Mhm.
ashamed
Don't be ashamed.
in this healing journey. And that's really why I created the podcast, Life After Infidelity, because I want people to know that they're not alone. They're not alone if they chose to stay. They're not alone if they chose to leave.
You're not alone.
Yep.
Don't let
Yep.
anybody force you to leave either. Leave when
No.
you're ready to go. That's another thing. That's another thing. So thank you again so much, Brianna. And thank you to our listeners for listening. Thank you.